Welcome to UNCAGED. Today we're speaking with Felix Frowein. It's great to chat with you. We're going to be talking a lot today with Felix about something that you can't really hear, something you can't see, but you can smell it. We're going to be talking about the world of fragrances. Felix is the Senior Vice President and Head of Global Consumer Fragrances at dsm-firmenich, and he'll tell us a little bit more about what they're up to, as well as his career in fragrances. But let's start with that, Felix. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
So I actually started my career in banking, liked it a lot, learned a lot, but didn't love it. And so I decided to move on from that, study business administration. And then I got the opportunity to actually fall in love with the fragrance industry. It was during an internship that I had the opportunity to do with Firmenich at the time, in New York City in marketing in the late 90s.
Wow.
And now when you're in your mid-20s and you're in New York City in the late 90s, you know what that means by itself already. I think never slept as little as during that time. So that was really great.
Well,
But
it's a really interesting time. I mean, because that was the dot-com kind of emergence, right? So it would have been the digital wonder years, basically.
well, for us, it was, I would say, a little bit different wonder years. It was the time when we really kicked ass or started to kick ass in the fine fragrance world. And
Wow.
just a couple of years before that, huge blockbusters like CK1, Pleasures, and so forth have just been launched. And we were just almost overwhelmed by the success that we're having at the time. And I mean, I was, as I said, a young marketing intern, had no idea whatsoever about this industry. But I got to know so many extremely passionate people, people who just loved what they do, and they were all in. And I got the opportunity to work with the Ralph Lauren's and Tommy Hilfigers and Armani's of this world. I mean, at that age, I was absolutely amazed. But I also saw how much people were burning for what they were doing, and the level of expertise and scientific background. And that was something that I've never experienced before. And frankly, I mean, that was the time I was hooked as much for the company, an amazing company with great people and great values, but also for the industry.
Yeah.
So I quickly finished my studies, and then knocked at their door again and said, "Hey, would you have a job for me?" And then the rest is history. Now it's almost 25 years that I work with
Amazing.
Firmenich. Been basically traveling with them around the whole globe, or working with them on pretty much every continent. Global roles, regional roles, large customers, small customers, primarily commercial roles. And now for the last 4.5 years, I'm heading global consumer fragrances. And I think, when people think about fragrance, they immediately think about what we would call fine fragrance. So the alcoholic perfumery, the one that you apply like this, basically.
Right.
That is a big part of what we do. But the actually larger part is all the fragrances that many of you guys are using every day without probably even noticing. These are the fragrances that go into detergents, fabric enhancers, soaps, shower gels, candles, deodorants, and so forth and so forth. So all the consumer products, hence the word consumer fragrances.
That's fascinating. I remember reading a business case about Procter & Gamble when they launched one of their products that kind of, I suppose, is like a fabric, supposed to remove odors. And when they did it, it had no scent. And customers didn't buy it until they added a fragrance to it. And that kind of suddenly changed the whole thing, because fragrances have been so associated by customers with cleanliness, right? Certain smells are associated with that idea. What a fascinating area. So, well, it's a great area that you work in. Tell us a little bit more about what's the latest and what you guys are working on at dsm-firmenich.
So, you just alluded to it. So, people use, or I mean, we put fragrances in those consumer products, of course, because they provide more pleasure for the consumer to use, but also to communicate the product benefits.
Hmm.
So, the problem that you just mentioned about the product that was certainly performing, but not smelling,
Mhm.
it did not communicate the product benefits properly to the consumer. So the reason to believe was suddenly not perceived. And that's, in this case, of course, it's all about freshness and cleanliness. And if you can't smell it, it's not there, right?
Yeah.
And so this is where we spend a lot of time to really understand this deeply, and understand, how the receptors in our nose perceive different molecules, and basically what's then happening in our brains, so that we can help consumers to really experience their products at the right touch points, the way how they're expecting them to perform. And there's a lot of science behind, but also a lot of art. And that's the
Yeah.
amazing part about this industry. You have perfumers that need to have this incredible scientific background, plus an enormous amount of creativity to bring both of it together.
One of
Um,
the areas that I thought was a really interesting example of this over the last several years is that I think it might have been Mandarin Oriental that started this, whereas you
yeah,
would walk into their hotel and it had such a distinct scent.
yeah.
And now
Oh,
that idea has been copied by many other hotel chains. But it's so fascinating, right? It's true. Like when I walk into, let's say, like the Mandarin Oriental in Barcelona, it hits you like it's that boom, it's that, oh, I know where I am. I could have closed my eyes and known that I was in the Mandarin Oriental.
and that happens with in many situations, right? Because the sense of smell is directly linked to your limbic brain. And so the moment you smell something, it immediately creates an emotion, or it propels you into a specific situation. So I think everybody knows that, the moment you smell the scent, or the cologne, the perfume of your first girlfriend or boyfriend, it
Mhm.
immediately propels you back into the time when that happened, right? But the same situation also happens in consumer fragrances products.
Mhm.
So, I have many situations. I've been experiencing many situations with consumers, how they tell us how incredibly important the interaction between the product and the scent of the product with their individual lifestyle is. And it all has to do with, the emotions that are created in a certain moment, and of course the cues of the product benefit. Let me just give
Wow.
you one example. Um, we do a lot of product testing with consumers, and sticking with the example of detergents. Sometimes you test the same product with the same base and the same never worn cloth before, and consumers tell you that one is significantly whiter than the other.
Right.
So how can they be? The clothes have never been worn before. The base is the same, so the same washing power, but one is significantly whiter. And it's all the perception of the product. When the consumer takes it out of the washing machine, smells it and says, "This smells white," right? So
Right.
it is whiter. And so to enhance, or actually to drive the perception of the product benefit, is something that we spend a lot of time on.
That's great. I'd be curious, it sounds like there's just tremendous opportunities for expansion into many, many consumer categories, and probably even ways to use very horrible smells to warn people away from certain things as well.
Very true.
Yeah, but I mean, tell me a little bit of what you're seeing in the market right now. What are consumers really gravitating for? What are some of the trends in the space?
In terms of olfactive space, or in terms of
Yeah, in terms of what consumers are looking for and, some of the things that are emerging. I was thinking that, I look at the world from a technology perspective. And so, this idea of virtual reality where we have wonderful headsets now and people are able to go enter these virtual worlds, but scent is such an important part of those things. And I'm just always curious how that
what's
will be
happening.
thought through. Yeah, yeah. A new division for DSM-firmenich here.
Gaming is certainly an interesting market, but let me talk more about, what are the important trends. So first of all, we see that post-COVID, 71% of the consumers, and we've done a study with almost 12,000 people all around the world. So 71% of consumers perceive fragrance as much more important to them in their daily lives than before COVID. And
Mm,
that not only has to do with the fact that, many have been faced with the moments when they actually lost their sense of smell, and that is a very frightening moment, and they suddenly realize how important the sense of smell is, and so you appreciate more to smell a perfume. But it also has to do with the fact that you become a lot more sensitive to your environment, and so the interaction of the scent with you and the perceiving the environment also through the scent through the sense of smell is becoming or has become significantly more important. And so there's then also a moment of pleasure in it. So people enjoy this moment of just being surrounded by a nice sense of smell, and so that results that overall, the drive for, or the how can I say, the longing for scent has been increased. And there, of course, a lot of what's happening now is to make sure that we as you mentioned before, that we have great malodor coverage, because there are multiple malodors out there. So we need to make sure that we cover them well, that we drive the right emotion, so that we help consumers and that we support consumers in their daily lives and in the situations they're in. Let me give you just one example. We've just launched new technology that helps consumers to focus significantly more. So by the way, how you design a fragrance, you can focus a lot more on the thing that you're currently doing. And there are multiple scientific studies behind that to not only prove the effect, but also find out what the proprietary combination of ingredients needs to be to help us do that. And I mean, we all experience more and more that with specifically all the social media going on, our attention gets drawn into so many different areas, and sometimes it's so important that we can focus again on what we actually do it, to do it better, but also do it faster. And scent can help us do that.
I love that. I mean, that seems to be so current with all of the stuff that we see as being part of, I'd say, the millennial, but certainly the Gen Z generation, where they spend a lot of time and a lot of money on mindfulness, on products that'll provide more focus. And what a wonderful idea. Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think, the last area where we're really working on a lot is actually to make really sure that we understand what scent drives what kind of benefit perception. Because at the end of the day, I mean, specifically in the world of consumer products, you have active ingredients that drive the actual benefit of a product. But then, as I said before, the perfume comes in and then makes this benefit perceivable for the consumer, right?
Right.
And so how can we bring both together, think it both together, so to make a holistic experience for the consumer? And that's where we spend a lot of time on.
I love it. I love it. I mean, Felix, I know that you had this amazing experience working as I guess it was an intern or early role in New York City. I can only imagine how much fun that must have been. But certainly you seem to have a real passion for scent and for fragrances. Tell me a
I
little
do.
bit of, the drivers for that. I mean, was there other passion drivers in terms of why this is something that means something? Do you use a lot of these products yourself?
I think we all do. We all do.
Yeah.
Some a little bit more intentional than others.
Yeah.
But look, I think there's no other product on this planet that evokes more reaction, emotion,
Mm.
impact than scent. I mean, maybe chocolate does as well, right? There might be a little bit of a parallel there. But besides, I mean,
Maybe it's the smell
there's
of chocolate.
well, and mostly then you also want to eat it, right? But I
Yeah.
mean, you cannot pull yourself out of it, right? You cannot not smell it, right? And it might be a positive reaction, might be a negative reaction, but you have a reaction, and I think that by itself is fascinating. And then I must say, the people in this industry are so passionate, all of them,
Mm.
because they burn for what they do. We just had a big convention here in Berlin this week, where we brought together the over 100 perfumers that globally work at dsm-firmenich, and it was such a powerhouse of creativity, passion, innovation. You need to know that there are less perfumers on this planet than astronauts, and so it's a rare breed. And these people
Mm.
are highly, highly motivated, and their inner passion has driven them to find this job, which many people don't even know exists, right? But they found it because they had this inner motor from childhood on, most of the time, that this is what they want to do, and they were longing for it, and they found this and they've been, first studying 5 years of chemistry to then add another 5 years of perfumery school on top to finally then start to fulfill their passion.
There may be something about maybe scent is almost like the unlocking of the next dimension of experience. If you really,
Absolutely.
if you get it right, it captures kind of such it's a stored memory, but also in the moment, it kind of really pushes you and forces you to be in that moment at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's when you talked about gaming before, right? I mean, there's a huge space, of course, where that's not necessarily yet the case. So you see first devices where you can actually also then have an olfactive experience while you are, I don't know, in the movie theater, while you watch something, or while you game something. But I think it's still early there. So a lot more to come.
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to the 1950s where you had the old Sentomatic
Yeah,
technology in theaters, but I don't
it's a
think that
time for
really
them.
ever worked very well.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That
But I mean, it is interesting. I mean, as we start to look out, Felix, here we are heading into Q4, which I know in the fragrance world is a very important quarter for all businesses.
every
But
quarter is important. I can tell you that much. Every
oh,
quarter is
yeah.
important.
Well, I guess I'm just thinking about all of those ad campaigns that you see in the holidays. But, as we look into 2024, what's on the horizon? What are the things that we're going to see?
Look, we're specifically in my space in global consumer fragrances, and we're set to do nothing less than reinventing perfumery. Over the last 120 years, we've basically have created perfumes in a very similar way, incrementally, improved with all the experience that perfumers have collected over the years. But now we're at the verge of really reinventing as much the métier of perfumery, so the craft,
Mhm.
the model that we have with our customers, but also the experience. And when I say reinventing the experience, it's as much the experience for our customers, but also specifically for the consumer. When
Mhm.
they're experiencing a perfume. And so let me give you a couple of examples. When we're reinventing the craft of perfumery, it's all about how can we evolve the sort of trial and error model that we've been experiencing over the last 120 years into a model where we can actually program success. So
Mm.
where actually know before I start the work, how success looks like. And of course, there are a number of things that help us do that. Latest AI tools, of course, machine learning, really exciting, generative AI, but also different programs, how we run proactively, how we work with consumers, how we use all the data, and so forth. Then, of course, a lot is coming in the sustainability space, where also the
Right.
craft is being completely reinvented, moving to 100% biodegradable, moving to 100% natural derived, or renewable. So a lot is happening there as well. And then last but not least, as I mentioned before, how can we much more intentionally also drive the benefit of a specific product? So there is a lot of reinvention happening in the space of the métier of perfumery.
Wow.
And then we also set to reinvent the model, as I said, the model of perfumery. And that primarily means for us today that, we move from a one size fits all model to let's become fluid, and let's understand, let's recognize that there are, multiple different uh, um, uh, uh, types of customers, types of users out there, and let's adjust the model to the individual opportunity.
Mhm.
And that means that I need to become a lot more flexible in the way how I work, and also allow different models to coexist in the current space. And primarily for us in perfumery, that means that we move from a 100% people-driven business model to a
Mhm.
people plus data business model.
Right.
And we've been hiring more and more data scientists to
See.
boost every kind of expert in our organization. Of course, perfumers, but also fragrance developers, consumer research, marketing, all the way to the commercial teams. And that makes a massive difference.
Yeah, I find the data element that you're highlighting here fascinating. I mean, not only I can see the efficiencies that can be gained in terms of understanding literally from idea all the way to a rollout of a product. I get that, but simply the idea of having a very thoughtful
Yeah.
database of scent and how it will be perceived and utilized and how that data could be actually interwoven into other data sets. I mean, it really gets your brain going with a lot of good creative thoughts. So very, very interesting stuff, Felix.
No,
So,
I absolutely agree with you.
so Felix, thank you so much. It's been amazing to go through all of this stuff with you. If someone wanted to learn more about what you and the dsm-firmenich team are doing, where's the best place to reach you?
LinkedIn. You'll all find me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. Not so much any other social media because you can't be everywhere. But I've chosen LinkedIn as the channel to communicate. By the way, as much internally with my team, in consumer fragrances are roughly 1,200 people, and I realized that actually if I want to communicate with them, one of the best ways is actually also through social media.
Yeah.
And so LinkedIn is there the channel of choice.
I think it's great. And I think, what you're going to have to do, Felix, is figure out what the scent that goes along with LinkedIn actually should be. So that will be,
That's a good question. Excellent question.
that'll be
Exactly.
the next,
It will not be
reason.
only one cent. It will not only be one cent. It needs to be an individualized cent, right? So that everybody has their individual perception of LinkedIn and what it brings to them.
That's great. Well, listen, Felix, again, thank you so much. We've been speaking with Felix Frowein. He is the Senior Vice President of Global Consumer Fragrances at dsm-firmenich. We've been talking about the world of fragrances, consumer fragrances, fragrances in every aspect of our lives, whether it be laundry detergent or the perfume that you wear, but really how it impacts almost every experience, every idea, every interaction that we have. It's a very exciting space. And, perhaps I didn't expect this, but a lot of discussions about topics like AI and data here as well. So anybody who wants to think about how you apply scent-based data into other models, here's a really interesting
Absolutely. Be my guest.
opportunity.
Reach out.
Again, Felix, thank you so much for being on the show, and we look forward to having you back.
Thank you, Ben. Really,
Cheers.
really nice interacting with you as well. Cheers.